What's going on, guys, and welcome to your evening edition of the Stimulus Update. So, even though GOP Senator Susan Collins states that this $1.9 trillion stimulus package would not even receive one single GOP vote, we will continue to move on with it. President Biden, he is very confident that this bill will pass even without one single Republican vote. Bernie Sanders is very confident as well. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they both believe this will pass with very easy numbers. So we will see what happens, and we will see what happens very soon. The House is expected to vote on this on Friday. The Senate will take up this bill next week. Right now, the only thing holding up this entire thing, the entire discussion, is the simple ruling of the Senate parliamentarian. Right now, reports indicate that we could have an answer any minute. We could have an answer tonight from her. We could also have an answer sometime tomorrow morning. This is going to happen at some point, and it should happen very soon. As to when, that is the million-dollar question. Nancy Pelosi doesn't know. Chuck Schumer doesn't know. Mitch McConnell does not know. President Biden, again, does not know. Nobody knows, but as soon as one person knows, I guarantee you the whole world is going to find out very quickly. And I promise I will bring you that update as soon as we find out. If this happens, this is going to be a huge indication. Whenever this happens, whether it's tonight, tomorrow morning, or maybe Friday morning or next week, whenever the Senate parliamentarian comes up with her ruling, this will be a huge indication as to which direction the stimulus package is headed. Now, nobody expects this bill to be kicked back to the House committees to be reworked and retooled. Nobody expects that. I don't expect that. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But if anything, what will happen is this bill might just have to be kind of reworked so that the $15 federal minimum wage can be pulled out. That's really the only thing. There might be some minor adjustments that need to be made, but outside of that, nobody expects this to be kicked back to the committees to be completely reworked. Maybe a little bit of modification with the verbiage, but outside of that, it should be a fairly simple task. What I can tell you is that the news out this afternoon and this evening is actually quite good. There's actually some positive signs that we are seeing. We know that Democrats are not looking at messing with the $1,400 stimulus checks. We know that. The $1,400 stimulus checks are in this bill. They're going to be in this. They're not going anywhere. What we do know is that the income thresholds could, if anything, this is the only modification that might be made, if the income threshold is not actually liked by progressives, not by the more conservative members of Congress, but if it's not liked by progressives, what we could see is that the income thresholds will actually be lifted. It will actually be increased. So instead of $75,000 for an individual or $150,000 for a couple, it would most likely be $75,000 for an individual without an income threshold limit. So not cut off at $100,000. Okay. Well, this would then go into what we'd see based on reports is then we'd see the same thing go into effect where it's $50 for every $1,000 you make over that income limit. And again, we could see that income limit, that phase out, we could see that adjusted. But what we're seeing right now and what we're hearing is progressives want to fight to get that income limit lifted and actually just taken away. Even Bernie Sanders has said that we're only going to see about 1% of the funds go to people that make over $250,000 or $300,000. So it's not like a lot of money, but 1% of what, $450 billion? That's a pretty good amount of money. $4.5 billion. That's a pretty good chunk of change. I know I'd be happy if someone wrote me a check for $4.5 billion. I'd be very happy. Also, what we also know is that Democrats are more than happy with the $400 per week unemployment boost. We know this is something that they've been fighting for. This is something that we know they really want to get done. Is this $400 per week boost? They want to get up from $300, but progressives would like to see this at $600. But Democrats are more than happy with $400. This is exactly what President Biden and senior Democrats proposed to begin with. So I don't see this going up anymore, but this also is why we're staying at 400, according to multiple reports, is because this would actually help people provide for themselves and their family, but it also doesn't keep people from looking for a job. So that's good news there. The news out today that I thought was actually quite interesting was actually this. Senators Mitt Romney and Tom Cotton unveiled a plan to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 to, get this, $10. So no, not $15 and not $11 like I alluded to earlier today from Joe Manchin. In their plan, now again, we don't know everything, but this was just their initial unveiling of this plan. This is what they want to do. So we don't know the exact terms of this, but it states that the minimum wage, again, I think this is interesting, but the minimum wage would not be achieved until 2025. This is the exact same time, this is the same limit that they're putting on the $15 federal minimum wage increase as well through the $1.9 trillion package. Is we wouldn't see a $15 federal minimum wage. That would not be the base wage until 2025. So the two senators, Mitt Romney and Tom Cotton, are using the exact same time frame, but instead of doing a roughly or a $7.75 increase, they're only doing a $2.75 increase. So it's not as much, but they're trying to extend it out the same amount of time. And one of the things that we do not know is how much is it going to increase over those 4 years. With the $15 federal minimum wage plan, or that increase, it goes from $7.25 to immediately when the bill is signed to $9.50. That's a big increase, $2.25 increase. Well, with Mitt Romney and Tom Cotton's plan, my guess is we're going to be looking at somewhere around $1 increase, maybe a little bit less. So we might see a 75-cent per hour increase to take it from $7.25 to $8, or it might go to $8.25, but I don't see it going past that in the first year. And I think that's where Democrats and specifically progressives are going to have the toughest time. And something that I addressed earlier is that another senator, Senator Joe Manchin, he does not like the $15 per hour minimum wage. He wants to change that and amend it from $15 per hour. If this bill goes through to the Senate, he's going to amend this next week, and he will propose an $11 per hour minimum wage provision. Again, this will happen next week. He's still working on this plan, and this is still something that would be in the works if, and only if, the Senate parliamentarian rules in favor of this going through the Senate and says it does abide by the Senate rules under the Byrd Rule. So we still have a lot to uncover here. There's so much information right now. It's difficult to really figure out what could happen, what has some merit. The GOP proposal from Senator Mitt Romney and Tom Cotton, that doesn't have really any legs to stand on for Democrats. But what it could do is it could bring Democrats to the table, and they could potentially pass a bill with bipartisan support. I don't think it's going to be for 10. I don't think it's going to be for 11. We could see something for possibly 11 if it happened over just 2 years instead of 4. But we could see something like the $12 to $14 range. I think that's very doable. I think a lot of people would be on board there. And that would be something that wouldn't happen in 4 years. That would probably happen in 3. So we'd get up to like a higher wage quicker, but at the same time, we wouldn't see that end push to go from 14 to 15 or 13 to 15 in the last year. And that could be something that Democrats just don't want to do. But President Biden has said multiple times he wants to see a bipartisan stimulus package. So it's very interesting as to what is going to happen. But all reports out today do indicate that a handful of lawmakers have spoken up about the issue of potentially losing more employees than actually getting out of poverty. Because according to the the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, they are stating that 900,000 people, Americans, will be lifted out of poverty. But in the kind of the flip side of that, 1.4 billion people, actually million people, 1.4 million people will then be without a job because of the increased wages. So a lot of lawmakers have spoken up about this and saying they're afraid that this is actually going to hurt the economy. But some are saying that, and again, this is, we don't have any names here because they say, this report says, they are afraid to publicly come forward and risk their names. So lawmakers oppose this because they say that this could actually hurt the economy, but at the same time, they don't want to risk their name and their reputation. So they're not going to come forward. Okay, that's what lawmakers do. That's what we have to deal with. So right now, there is a lot of talks going on behind the scenes. We know Republicans are working to try and provide some type of bipartisan plan at this time. What's in it, again, who knows? We have no clue what would potentially be in this plan. But at this point, any plan that Republicans do put in front of us, do put together, here's the big thing that has some merit behind it. This would ultimately delay stimulus from reaching the American people. It would hurt the American people. So what I can tell you right now is that the best thing for people on unemployment, best thing for vaccine funding, for schools, for state and local governments, and for those that are in desperate need of a $1,400 stimulus check or even more, the best thing for all of you guys is to hope that Republicans do not come forward with a good proposal that could potentially work. If they do, and this could be one of the issues, and Mitch McConnell has done this multiple times in the past, so I do not put it past him, okay? But if they do, first I think it would be great if we get a bipartisan stimulus package, but what I don't think would be great is if we see Republicans come forward with a potentially good proposal that has opportunity, has some merit behind it. The problem is, if they do this, we could see this 2.5 week deadline just completely be missed. We'll just blow right through this. And we might not be seeing a stimulus check. We may still be discussing stimulus in April. We're in February. It's February 23rd today. We could still be talking about this in a month and a half and still not have a deal if Republicans come forward within the next 2.5 weeks and propose something that is on the right track, that is close. Because all reports indicate that President Biden would take a step back from pushing through this budget reconciliation bill. He'd take a step back. He'd evaluate what we have on the table from Republicans. And he would potentially try to negotiate that bill with his current plan. And this is something that I said a couple weeks ago. Before we knew that they were going to go forward with the budget reconciliation, I told you guys a couple weeks ago, I don't know the videos that I did, but I told you guys, one of the things that we could see is President Biden and senior Democrats say, okay, Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, you don't want to negotiate, Susan Collins, you don't want to negotiate? Fine. We're just going to push forward and pass this bill through a budget reconciliation. And that's exactly what they're doing. And then I said, if they do this, wait till that bill is passed through the House. Wait for that bill to be passed through the Senate. Again, with absolutely no GOP votes, with no Republican voters. It will still pass. It's going to go sit on President Biden's desk. When it's there, I guarantee you, President Biden is going to say, hey, Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, look what I got. All I got to do is sign it. Do you want to put together one last effort, one last plan that could rival this? If you do, I'm open to it. I'll give you 1 week. And that's all it's going to take. That's all it's going to take. And Mitch McConnell and the GOP, they're going to be like, we better do something. If we don't do something quick, they're going to pass this and we're all going to be very unhappy. So that's what we are hearing right now, is that there is a good chance we see this bill pass and it gets sat on President Biden's desk and he uses that as leverage to get a bipartisan stimulus package done. So I'm just saying, okay, just warning you guys, if we see this, and this isn't great news, but if we see this, good news is we could get a bipartisan package. The bad news is it could potentially take another week or two, which would ultimately delay stimulus to the American people. So now, here's what we need. Here's what we need to look for. And there's only one thing that we need to be looking for. That is the Senate parliamentarian's rule and what she says over the $15 federal minimum wage increase. So once we see this come, a lot of questions that we currently have will simply be answered and we can move on to the next thing. So I Just want you to be aware of what is going on. But as I know more, I promise I will share more. Consider subscribing so I can continue to keep you updated on everything that's going on. Make sure you smash that like button as well, and I'll see you guys on the next one.